you can always contact me through email if you want. And so, you're always welcome to have some follow-up questions. Just look for me at, classes, workshops, that might be around the state. I always carry seed with me. We're doing flowers this year, but also saving seed on different types of tomatoes. So you can maybe pick up some seed on some of these varieties we've been growing. So yeah, there are great resources out there. Bill Best, from an old Kentucky seed saver, is just a great guy to talk with. So if you ever run into Bill, at one of his seed swaps, he has a seed swap down in Berea, Kentucky that I always go to in November. And then he has another one down in Pikeville, Kentucky, usually in April. And so they're just great events to go to if you want to pick up old time vegetable seeds and flower seeds and herbs, and maybe learn about something you didn't know before. So Bill's a great resource, and to just check out the Sustainable Mountain Agriculture Center, which he owns, but his son owns it now, and grandson owns it. So they're on the web at Sustainable Mountain Ag Center, SMAC. So beans are a big thing we're doing, trials with and saving seed for. And I know it's not in your Grow This Challenge this year, but you've done beans before. But this is a super easy crop to save seed on. So we do like to save seed on beans. We'll get to that in a moment. But kind of just to reinforce what I was saying before, we really need to do seed saving as a regular gardening practice if we possibly can, because it does preserve genetic diversity. And we need that, because sometimes when you buy these hybrid varieties from these big seed companies, they're all genetically similar. So if something comes in and like a virus or something, and then starts attacking these plants, these heritage or these adapted varieties that we grow in Appalachia are likely to be resistant to that or tolerant to it. So you have some benefit there. But also, like I said, it preserves the history of the state through food, and climate is changing for various reasons. But as we keep these old time varieties that we're saving seed from, they tend to be more elastic. They tend to be have the ability to withstand stress better. And so, having those old time varieties might be a way to sort of weather, like hot, dry summers like we've had, or lots of rainfall. So that's an issue that we've had in the past. And some of them are resistant to pests. And I already mentioned that it just might outright be an economical saving for seed. I think some of you have all done the Three Sister Garden Challenge, the squash, the beans, and the corn. And they're great companion plants, but those are three great plants to save seed from. And you can do it simultaneously while you're growing them sort of as companion plants. So it could be the corn, could be popcorn. It could be a flint corn. It could be a sweet corn if you want to. And then the squash is probably a winter squash, which we've got some really great old time winter squashes here in West Virginia, Hubbard squashes and Cushaw squashes. And then you could also grow some beans, and these beans are usually trellising up the corn. So they're mostly pole beans or half runner beans. So if you ever think about, growing plants together, Three Sister Garden is a great companion plant in there. You could actually take out winter squash and put in sweet potatoes. So anything that sort of crawls along the vines along the ground and shades out weeds would be a good companion plant with those crops. There's a couple things I think you guys probably need to remember is when you're looking through the seed catalogs, they'll have a category of varieties called open pollinated. They're usually listed on the variety. OP is usually sort of the nomenclature, I guess, that's used on that. But that just means that the variety just breeds true to itself. So it's not been crossed with another parent to produce the offspring. So it's just basically seed saved from that same parent and not allowed to cross with anything. So those are the varieties that you want to save seed from. So I think all the varieties that you all got from your Grow This Challenge, the kale, the carrot, and the pepper, those are all open pollinated varieties. So in theory, you could save seed from them if things, are set up right. We'll talk about that in a moment. But OP varieties are heirloom varieties, and not all open pollinated varieties are heirloom, but every heirloom variety is an open pollinated variety. So, and sometimes, like I said, they'll list it on the seed packet that you'll list, or the varieties. If you have trouble finding a variety, you can go to some of these organizations like Seed Savers Exchange, which is in Decorah, Iowa. Great resource. And then great seed companies across the country. Baker Creek Heirloom in Mansfield. And then there's some Appalachian heirloom seed companies already mentioned. Sustainable Mountain Ag Center. There's So True Seed in North Carolina. And then there's Southern Exposure Seed Exchange in Virginia. And there's even some seed companies here in West Virginia that have heirloom seeds that I'm happy to direct you to as well. So you can find some of these heirloom varieties in commercial catalogs. You can source them through the Seed Savers Exchange, and you might be able to even find them in things like the Market Bulletin, where people are listing varieties that are old-time varieties and that you might get seed from that are unique to West Virginia, or maybe to parts of West Virginia. I often go to the Market Bulletin to find seed sometimes too. So I think, if your beans are drying down and they are open pollinated varieties, pretty good chance you can save seed from them. So if they're hybrid beans, like a Provider or a Tendered or something like that, they won't breed true. So you're really looking at, open pollinated varieties. And there are a few open pollinated bush bean varieties, but most of them are pole beans and half runner beans. So you can see there what I have trellised are half runners and poles, and a lot of them are dry beans, like October beans and Christmas beans, lima beans that are shelled dry. But I think the thing to remember, though, if you're going to save bean seed, is beans are self-pollinated, so they kind of breed. They isolate themselves pretty well. I kind of like to keep them about different varieties 10 feet apart, which isn't very hard to do. And then they should self-pollinate and breed true. But like I said, make sure it is an open pollinated varieties. And I let the beans just dry down on the trellis, so you can let them dry down on the plant, and then pick them dry, or you can pick them, when the beans filled out, and then dry them yourself. But I think a lot of times you can just leave them on the vine, unless you're getting heavy rain or something where it might cause the pods to shatter. Then I would harvest the bean pods and then dry them indoors and then shell them out. But I think the other thing to remember too is when you're saving seed, even if you're going to save seed from your pepper variety, if you liked it, just plant enough of that same variety so that it breeds true as a group, as a block. So with beans, we like to have about 20 plants of each variety to save seed from. For peppers, I'd like to, maybe have 10 plants of the peppers to save of that same variety to breed true. And so yeah, just harvest, harvest it fresh if you want to eat it for fresh beans. And Jackson, this Jackson half runner is one of our favorite old time heritage varieties that we save seed from. The Josephine Jackson half runner bean, which is excellent half runner bean, doesn't get tough in hot weather, really is a good producer. And we put it on these trellises. I'll show you real quick. Other types of beans, like the white half runner, is available too. We also do pole beans, Cold Camp pole bean, which is out of Nicholas County, West Virginia, is one of our favorites. Some of my friends use a TP trellis on their beans. Our trellises have been mostly slant trellises that we angle the trellises and we just pick the beans on an angle. I'm happy to tell anybody more about this, how to build these trellises. But they're great for bean picking because all the beans are hanging to the side, and then you can just come down there and just pick the beans, like almost like a machine. But you're not a machine, but it does make and I'll be the first to admit picking beans is not fun work, but if you can make it a little bit easier, that makes it better. And so these slant trellises that we designed really do a good job on pole beans. So that's a whole separate topic. We can talk about how to build those and angle them and all that stuff. And we do have some publications on that. If you want to email me, I can send you some publications. There are some bush beans that are heirlooms. I don't know if anybody grows Roma beans. I love Romano beans, but the Roma 2 is an heirloom bean. So like I said, you can just dry them down on the trellis, and then pick them as the dry beans, and then shell them out, and they're good to go. So there's two routes here. I mean, you can shell them out, and usually a lot of these beans you can use as soup beans or cooking beans, but a lot of times they're just dried and shelled and then put into packets and then put in the refrigerator or a cool, dry place. So beans are super easy, just as long as you're kind of isolated from other varieties, by 10 or 15 feet, let's say, and you got maybe 10 to 12 plants of the same variety. You can save some of those beans that are grown on that plant for seed, and then, like I said, just put them in. I like to put them in like a coin envelope, a paper envelope, and then I'll put all the envelopes in a Ziploc bag and then put them in either a freezer. You can deep freeze them, or you can just put them in the refrigerator. But beans even store okay at room temperature, but I wouldn't keep room temperature more than a year. But if you put them in the refrigerator, they'll store up to 10 years. So that's no big deal to do all that. I'm doing an heirloom tomato trial this year. It's just kicking in. It's in a high tunnel, and so tomatoes. I know not part of your throwdown or your challenge this year, but I know you've done tomatoes in the past. But it's a great crop to save seed from. Because a lot of these old time tomato varieties are not available commercially, and it's just the only way really to get them. So if you're going to save seed on tomatoes, just choose varieties that are true to type. They're open pollinated. They're heirloom varieties, and you just take a fine ripe tomato off the plant that looks good, doesn't have any rotting or disease issues, or the plant doesn't have any disease issues, and hopefully the plant's vigorous and strong and healthy looking. And then you just cut the tomato in half and then just squeeze the pulp into a jar, and you can ferment it. I'll show you in a moment. So there's a mortgage lifter that we've been doing a lot of trials with. We got several mortgage lifters in our trial this year, and we like to save the seed from this variety. There's what we call a West Virginia mortgage lifter, which is true variety that came from Radiator Charlie, which is also Rod White, who passed away in Jackson County, West Virginia. Gave me the seed about 6 or 7 years ago, and I've been growing it ever since and been trying to spread it to folks in the state. And I've also given seed out to Amish farmers in Ohio and Pennsylvania. So it's making sort of a wider area than where it's normally been grown. But we love that mortgage lifter, and that's what it looks like. Good 1 1/4 pound tomato. It's really one on a nice tomato. And some yellow ones we're looking at. We've done Kellogg's breakfast. And this is one that's in our trial this year. It's from Upshur County, West Virginia, which we call, it's been called Aunt Lou's yellow tomato. And it's an excellent yellow beefsteak tomato. So we're saving seed on that. And then there's the West Virginia Hillbilly. So again, like I said, you want to make sure you're saving seed on tomatoes from open pollinated heirloom varieties, isolated about 20 feet from another variety if you could. Sometimes you can cap the flower, because they self-pollinate, but you don't want pollination from bees from other varieties. So you can put a little cap on the flowers if you want to, but a lot of times you can just isolate them by distance or planting date sometimes, or by distance. And so we just squeeze the pulp into a jar like this, a jelly jar or a mason jar, and then we let it ferment. So it's kind of a wet fermentation process to save seed on tomatoes. And a little different from some other seeds that are dry, kind of dry when you take them out of the fruit, like the pepper seeds. You just air dry them on a paper towel. If you're drying squash seeds or pumpkin seeds, you just let them air dry. But if you're doing something that's a fleshy fruit like a tomato, you got to squeeze the pulp out of it, ferment the pulp, and then you extract the seeds from the pulp. So it's not too big of a deal. Again, just don't select fruit that's diseased. Don't select a fruit that's rotted or plants that have early blight on them or something, and then you can actually be transmitting that disease through your seed. So squeezing it in there, letting it ferment. Um, Sometimes I add water. If so, I put it in a jar. Usually there's enough pulp and seeds to not add water, but you might want to add some water to it, and then you just let it ferment for about 5 days. You can stir it every day to get those seeds to sort of fall off out of the pulp into the bottom, so that the good seeds will sink. They've got embryos in them, so they're going to sink to the bottom of the jar. Then at the end of the 5-6 day period, you just come in there and run it through a colander and just take that pulp off, and then wash it really well through the colander, and then you blot them dry on a paper towel or a paper plate or a napkin or whatever, and then you let them air dry for about 10 days at room temperature. And they're put in the packets and then put in the cooler or the refrigerator for storage. And so pretty simple process for doing it. And I know you've done squash before. This is a Cushaw squash. So there are some really great heirloom Appalachian squashes like the Cushaws, the candy roaster squash, which is mostly from southern Appalachia, from North Georgia, from western North Carolina. But we do grow candy roasters here in Appalachia too. And then there are the Cushaws or the striped squashes, which are neck pumpkins. They're great to save seed from. And so there's a candy roaster, and you just scoop the seeds out of the fruit, and you can roast the seeds and eat the seeds, or you can just dry them and put them into storage. And they work really well that way. So that's a North Georgia candy roaster. This is a banana squash, which is an old time squash. You can save seed from that. That's an Appalachian type squash. But just remember, squashes, that whole family, the cucurbit family, they're dioecious. So they've got male and female flowers on the same plant. I should say that instead. So there's cross pollination, and so you could get cross pollination with another variety. So the easiest way to have these things breed true, if you have different varieties of squash in your garden, is just pollinate yourself. Just get a Q-tip or swab, and then just take pollen from a male flower to the female flower, and then you can put a little twist tie on it or something, or I put a little price tag on it. I write the date that I pollinate, and then hey, you know that it's been pollinated from the pollen that's true to type. Otherwise, like I said, if you have other squashes, they'll cross pollinate with each other. So you just gotta make sure you don't have that issue. But do everything you can to bring in pollinators with squashes. Bees are going to be really critical. So I plant the perimeter with sunflowers or other types of flowers that bring in pollinators. And yeah, it's different. There's even some cantaloupes that are heirlooms. Although I got to be honest, I don't like any of the heirloom cantaloupes. I think the heirloom pumpkins and heirloom winter squashes are great, but the heirloom, this is a pocket melon. I don't know what it is, but these heirloom cantaloupes are just not sweet enough. I guess we're just too spoiled. We want so much sugar now, but they're actually pretty bland. So I don't grow a lot of the heirloom cantaloupes anymore. There are some pretty good heirloom watermelons. The Charleston Gray's an heirloom if you've ever grown yet. But there are some other ones that are Blacktail Mountain. That's a really good heirloom watermelon. They're all seeded, of course. They're not seedless hybrids. So we just make sure that the melon's really ripe and we're ready to harvest it, or the squash is fully mature. So you can always tell when a squash is ready to be harvested by the shell on it. It gets hard. So you really can't puncture the shell with your thumbnail. So that's usually an indication that your squash is ready to be picked, and you can, like I said, eat it, put it into storage, or you can cut it open and extract the seeds. the way I do it is, as you eat it, you just scoop out the seeds and then you go ahead and eat the squash, but you just save the seeds on them. So, if you're looking at separating the varieties, it's pretty wide distance, 1,500 feet. That's why I put that in red. So it's better just to do your own pollination on these type of squashes if you've got other varieties, or if your neighbors have squashes, just to be on the safe side so that you're getting the right varieties on there. So melons and squashes, melons are a little different. They're a little bit wetter seed, so you really don't ferment it, but you just wash the seed through a colander. Pumpkin seeds, they have some pulp on them too, but you might just want to blot them dry after you've washed them. So real quick, that is real quick. So just watch for seed swaps around West Virginia. There are some seed swaps that will be going on this fall and this winter. We always have one at the Small Farms Conference. Always look and see what your nearest seed library is, because there's some really great seed libraries across the state that you might be able to access heirloom seeds through your local library. So I'm very happy to be here. I know it was really fast, but just remember, you've got supporters at the university if you want to save seeds. So I do buy seed from seed companies, and we have seed company donations from seed companies. But I'm open-minded, and I save a lot of seed, and I just want people to have options. So there's going to be a day where maybe we're going to run out of seed through commercial companies, or there's going to be fewer and fewer companies available, and we have to be more self-sufficient on our food, and that starts with seed saving. So I appreciate everybody taking their lunch break to do this, come in and participate. And if there's any time, Keely, for questions, I'm happy to do that. And she told me that you needed a little code word to do your survey, so we'll just say seed is your code word. And so I appreciate everybody's time, and I'll take any questions. If not, that's okay. You can always email me questions later.
We do have one question in the comments. It's from Mary, and she wants to know if bush beans cross with pole beans.
Yes, they will cross with pole beans. So yeah, all the beans will cross pollinate with each other. But like I said, most of the time, the bean flower self-pollinates before it even opens. So even before you see bees on it, it's already pollinated itself. So after it's pollinated itself, if there's pollen coming from other beans, it won't set. So likely that it's self-pollinating, and that you'll get true to type even if you've got pole beans in the vicinity.
Do we have any other questions before we wrap it up? I know we really appreciate this presentation. It was definitely very informative for me, and as we embark on this journey of all trying to use our seed packets for the first time. So we definitely appreciate your expertise and your help with this.
Yeah, I don't remember. What's the variety of pepper that you guys have been growing?
It's Jimmy Nardello's.
Yeah, Jimmy Nardello. So that's a great old time, frying sweet pepper. Yeah, I definitely recommend you guys saving seed on that. So just scoop the seeds out of it, and you may wash them. You may want to run through a sieve or a colander, and then just blot them dry. And like I said, just put them in the cooler. Just make sure there aren't any other peppers close by, because you could get insect pollination with that. So maybe if you feel that your Nardellos are kind of by themselves, there's no issue of cross pollination, I definitely would save seed on them. They're an excellent variety.
Mm-hmm. And then do you want to briefly mention to them what you told me about the kale and how it goes through an overwintering process first or something like that? We have the red Russian kale.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So yeah, kale is a biennial, and so is your carrot. So it has to be exposed to some cold weather before it starts flowering. So yeah, you wouldn't get any seed production on it. Probably, yeah, it would probably. I don't know whether it would overwinter or not, but it could possibly overwinter. and then it would flower next spring, and then you would collect seed on that. So yeah, it's a little trickier with these biennials. Carrots are tricky. Again, they got to be exposed to cold weather before they'll flower. But they're insect pollinated, so you could get cross pollination with wild carrots. So it's real tricky. But like I said, I think, yeah, just kind of start simple and start with an annual plant and maybe something that you really like. And if you like it, do everything you can to save the seed on it. And the way to do that is make sure it's just isolated and that it breeds true.
Mhm. All right, well, I'm not seeing any other questions, but this presentation was recorded, so it will be available on our YouTube channel very soon. And also we'll, of course, share that link on Facebook and stuff like that, so you guys will be able to come back and watch it. And then if you have any additional questions for Dr. Jett that you want to ask in the Facebook comments, I'm happy to reach out to him for you later with those. So thank you again so much for tuning in today, and thank you for the presentation. That was very helpful. And we will see you
Thank you.
guys soon. All right, bye-bye.
You guys.